Hi, Michael Elliott here, Between Two Mammoths. I'm here today with Buffy Ayres, Elizabeth Ayres, Clarence Francis, 1910 professor of the social sciences, a member of the Department of Psychology. So great to be with you here, Buffy. So a lot of us are talking about diversity. We always talk about it. You actually decided to research the impact of diversity on college students, which is fabulous. And your new book is coming out this month. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, this book is interviews with the students that I started interviewing 12 years earlier when they were first-year students at Amherst, interviewing them at age 30. And I asked them the question, what did you learn looking back at your experience at Amherst about race and racism, and what was the source of that learning? Was that from your peers? Was that from your coursework? Was that from workshops? 81% of both the black and white students said it came from their peers. Mm-hmm. In getting to know students of color here, black students, becoming friends with them, knowing them in different contexts, you learn about their lived experiences. And it was eye-opening for the white students to hear about the racism that these students and their families had endured throughout their lives.
So you've been following this question and the set of questions for a long time, this cohort of students for a long time. What initially inspired you to get involved in this?
I think the initial part was my interest in social class rather than race. As we had more lower income students, I had experiences with them in just talking with them that made me aware of some of the policies and practices we had here that were really based on the assumption of an affluent student body. So I had an honor student, a lower income student, who accomplished more in the course of her thesis work than she had imagined, and she came in proudly holding the 3 required copies to give to her readers that had to be in those spring black binders. Yep. And basically she handed them to me proudly and said, wow, those binders are really expensive. And I said, how did you pay for them? And she said, I bounced a check at Hastings. But that was just one example of a policy that didn't work anymore when you bring in low-income students. And that was the end in our department of ever requiring those black binders. But another example, I was talking with a first-year student, a low-income black student from the South, close to Thanksgiving time. And she had a big cultural adjustment to make to this place. She was brilliant. She actually graduated Phi Beta Kappa. And so when I asked about Thanksgiving, she couldn't afford to go home. She said her plan was she was going to stay here. But Valentine used to close for the week of Thanksgiving. And I went to the Dean of Students, Ben Lieber at the time, and I said, what do we do for these students? We had no programming in place. So that year he cobbled something together. It started seeing the college through the lens of social class. And more aware of that, I thought, if we're going to accept these students, we've got to learn more about the challenges that they're facing. And that was one of my 2 main research questions when I started this research. What are the challenges that students are facing on this campus due to their race and class? And my other question was really about what are they learning from the diversity in the student body.
Did you learn anything about, in your research, about the impact of the environment that they learned in here at Amherst on their workplaces and how they thought about the work that they did in their professional lives after they graduated?
71% of the students that were black said they experienced some kind of racial bias in their workplace. And close to half of them, when I asked if they thought they had an equal chance of promotion based on race, almost half of the black students said that they were now graduates, said that they didn't feel they had an equal shot at promotion because when they looked up in their organizations, there were less and less people who looked like them. But they had learned skills here at Amherst to be comfortable in a predominantly white world, which is what they were entering in terms of their professions. They learned how to adjust their behavior to fit in and to have the effect that they wanted to have. So they did think, they talked about being very aware all the time of how they were presenting themselves in order to be successful in the workplace.
You've been here for about 50 years.
Almost 48.
50, 48 years. What would you have told the young Elizabeth Ayres who came to campus 47, 48 years ago?
Stay the course, because that wasn't an easy time to come to this college. The institution I arrived at, it was the very first year they took women. And it was a small group of transfer women. That was 1975. It wasn't until 76 that they actually started taking a freshman class of women. So we still had pretty much a white male student body. And I was one of 15 women. 14 of us had been hired between 72 and 75 as Amherst approached coeducation. There were still plenty of people on this faculty who weren't fully convinced that women had the right, as they put it then, quality of mind to really be tenured here ever. And there were still male students who weren't convinced that women were equally competent, and we were being tested. And it was a much harder place, I think, to join the faculty back then, because we didn't have the resources to help you become a better teacher that we have now. We have the Teaching and Learning Center. We have so much help. This is a completely different institution than the one I arrived at. And so looking back, I'm like, I am so lucky I stayed the course.
Well, I think Amherst College is lucky that you stayed the course, and I think generations of students are lucky that you stayed the course. And we're all excited about the book and excited to celebrate it.
Thank you so much.